Today we're going to be taking a look at some InsightHub hidden gems. So those lesser known features that are no less useful when coming to manage a panel. First of these that we'll be taking a look at is the ability that we've added recently to map directly from survey questions into our user fields, removing the need to append our data after the survey is finished. Previous process for this, as we can see, is fairly laborious. Whereas the new process in which we can map our user fields directly is a simple case of adding and mapping our fields, saving and running these, and the process from then can be automated. I've also included a bonus feature within this one, as we've recently added multiple choice user fields into the database for the InsightHub, meaning that we can have multiple values attached to a user's account within the same user field. In order to go through this, we'll move over to one of our training platforms and we'll have a quick run through of a practical mapping process. For today's purposes, I've set up a very brief survey within which I've got 3 questions, one of which is a multiple choice question based around the products that a user will currently hold with this bank. Once I have this question set up, I can then go to Database, Add and Edit User Fields, and in advance of this I've added a Products User field into which I've added all of my survey answers as values, and I've also selected that this is a multiple choice user field, meaning again that we can append multiple values to this. In order to set up my mapping, up in the top right we can see Map Data. I can then choose to add my mapping and add a title to this to get us started. Once I've saved this down, it's going to take me to select the source and the variable for this. This will be the survey that we've just looked at and the individual question that we looked at also. We then need to match this survey question with a user field within the platform. For this, we only have one that's selected as multiple choice, so we'll link this directly to our products user field. Once we save and continue, we then just need to, as a one-off, match each of these values with the survey answers that we have. And once we've done so, we can then select whether we would like to overwrite existing data. This is marked by default as we'd usually always want to map the latest survey data as our database information. And we can automate this process as well, meaning that when new users answer this question within this survey, it will automatically overwrite the user fields associated with their account. We can run these manually, however, so I can leave that unticked if required. Once I've completed this, I can either save this in place and run it at a later date, or I can choose to save and run this now, and it will let me know how many users' account details have been updated, then take me back to my list of available maps. As we can see from the lightning bolt, these are automated, but we can manually run all of our maps as well as individually run these maps with this play icon. We can edit the settings for these should we need to as well. And finally, we can delete these if we no longer require them. An additional feature that we've added somewhat recently is our new prize draw functionality, which allows you with just 7 clicks to randomly draw a prize draw winner from the available users within a given range. Again, in order to look at this, we'll move back over to our training platform, and we can see when we go to panel and community settings, list reward points, we're then presented in the top right with a prize draw functionality. For this, we can click, selecting both our start and end date to specify our range. We can then choose to base this upon only users who've actively logged in or all users within the panel. This will add into the equation any users that have gained points but haven't necessarily logged in. So anybody that's completed a no login required survey, for instance. Once we've done so and selected our parameters, we can then pick a winner, and it will randomly draw a winner from the eligible consumers within the panel. Next section that we're going to have a look at is the editing of our homepage navigation bar. So as we can see here, we've got a screenshot of our training platform with a short menu in the top left. If we do need to alter that, we can do that. And it's especially useful for if we want to highlight specific areas, or we even temporarily hide areas away if we no longer need them. We can also link to specific projects, both internally and externally, if we're looking to increase click-through to a specific task. In order to set this up, we'll go back to the home page of our training platform, and we can see we've got currently 4 options. I've then added these 2 test options, which I've linked directly into the page where we can edit this menu. In order to access this, however, we can go to the back room, site content, and then we've got navigation desktop. We do also have mobile, which is edited in much the same way, but we'll stick with desktop for today. We can then see we've got our first 3 menu options with some sub options ticked here as well. If we untick any of these, it will remove them from that nav bar. And if we want to add our own, we can simply select in the top right, add a name to this. We can then add a URL directly into here. So I'll just use this page's URL, paste this in place. I can also specify a CSS ID for this selector if I do want to customize this, but it is optional, so I can come back and provide that at a later date if I need to. Or alternatively, I can just leave that blank. Once I've saved that in place, we can see it will then exist at the bottom of our menu, and I can choose to hide or show that as I see fit, as well as dragging that into and out of position within the menu. And also, if we drag this within an existing menu as well, we can have this as a secondary menu option as a drop down from our primary menu. Once we update this, if we then head back to our home page, we can see within our menu we've added our custom menu option here. In addition to highlighting specific tasks via a menu option, we can also highlight these via a brand new page on the platform. Creating a page is very quick and easy, and it's especially useful if we want to highlight things like prize draw terms and conditions, or if we have some company news or company case studies that we'd like to share. We can create a specific page to those and link to them wherever they are, wherever we want to within the platform. These aren't task specific, so they don't have to be linked to a specific task, and they're there just as a page that we can use in order to spread information to users. In order to set up a new page, to go over to our training platform and head to Backroom, again we're going to go to Site Content and then select Pages. Once we've done so, we'll see our various pages that we have within the platform, and we can see we've got things like cookie policy and privacy policy added. But if we need to add an additional page, we can do so in the top right. It will then take us to a relatively familiar editor, as it is the same one that we would use for newsletter. We can then add a title to this. This will then constitute the secondary URL for the page. So after the /, it would be example-page. Alternatively, if we want this to be a specific value after that, we can fill that in within the slug section here. If we want this to show on mobile, we will also need to add a mobile title to that page. For page type, there are 3 available. We would always want to set this up as a default page, as cookie policy and terms and conditions are a very specific page type. We can then choose to either show this on the login page. This again is reserved for terms and conditions and privacy policy pages, or we can choose to show this on the footer, meaning that once we launch that, it will be linked within the footer of our InsightHub at the bottom here. Once we're happy with our titles, we can then start to build the content of our page. And I'm just going to drag in a couple of sections from this right-hand side, and then we'll add into the top one some text. Important to remember when we do want text within there, if we are copying and pasting, to always paste as plain text so that it removes any formatting that we've gained within Word or other text editors. I can then edit my typography if I want to, for instance, centralize this. In addition to text, I can then add an image. In order to do so, I will need to upload this to the theme images first, and then copy the image URL from there. Once I paste that in and select to add my image, it will then be added onto my page. Once I'm happy with how this looks, I can save this down and it will then exist within the platform as this example page, and I can preview the page from here by selecting the view icon and then taking to a preview version of this page. If, however, I want the direct URL, simply need to remove anything after the question mark, including the question mark from our URL, and it will give me the base URL for this page. Final thing that we're going to take a look at today is a fairly overlooked feature in adding a task admin. So this is great if we don't necessarily want to purchase additional tool licenses, as there is a cost involved, but we might need support for a temporary time from other staff members that don't necessarily have full access to the InsightHub. What we can essentially do is to create a task in name only, assign it to an administrator or a task administrator as we would refer to it. They can then create and launch that on our behalf. In order to do so, we can have this feature available to us within any task within the platform, but we'll focus today on Research Tools and SurveyMR 2.0. Within each survey, whether it's upcoming, live or closed, we'll always see an admin rights tab into which we can add additional administrators if we do want other team members who don't have full survey license to edit or update this survey on our behalf. We can always remove these as well should we need to revoke access. We can also access this when we initially create our survey, and when we select Add SurveyMR 2.0, we can add an administrator directly from here as well. This will mean that users can then create this survey just with a title. I can then assign an administrator to this, saving this down, meaning that the remainder of the setup can be left with the client demo account. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all learned something today, and we will be back with more hints and tips on the InsightHub in more training sessions soon.